Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin', Fantasy Champs? My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always.
What's up?
Oh God, it's week 6, and we are in, I would say, the bottom basement of Thursday night football matchups. And this is where, like, last week, I don't know if you watched Thursday night football, but it was bad. It wasn't a good game. And Al Michaels sounded like the most miserable, crabby, Bill Belichickian human being I've ever heard in my life. Like, he regretted every single ounce of choosing, because, you know, like, everyone's got to have a Monday night football game, so there's some boring Monday night football games. Everyone's got to have a Thursday night football game, so there's boring Thursday night football games. Sunday nights, that's prime time. You're finishing the week off. There's almost never a boring Sunday night football game. Almost never. They all have interesting impact. They flex those games in. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, they used to get those games. Now Al Michaels is on Thursday night football, and he's gonna call the Commanders and the Bears live in action. He's gonna be miserable. He's gonna be fun.
Show up in the booth with pajamas on.
It's literally. But anyway, today we're gonna do Thursday night football preview and go through the atrocities that some of these lineups are. This should probably be a 15-minute show. I'm not even joking. It's gonna be really short. Just because
makes up for the last one.
Makes up for the last one because this is just pure disgustingness of a matchup. So before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like, and comment down below any questions you may have for us. All right, let's, how are you doing, Rick, by the way? How's things going? How's your fantasy
I'm doing all right. I'm just going to briefly say that I was undefeated because we've been picking Thursday night games at the end of the show, and I was undefeated through a couple weeks, and man, Russell Wilson not only let me down, but made me almost sad how bad that game was last week. So despite how bad this matchup looks, I think it might be better than last week just because of how bad the game was last week. I'm gonna root for optimism and say we're getting a fun game.
If the teams are bad and everyone expects a bad game,
it can be fun.
It can be fun.
That's what I'm saying. The over-under right now, 38.5. Tempted to bet the over on that.
Ooh, we're feeling risque.
The Bears got 22 against the Vikings.
I live in Massachusetts, so I don't get sports betting until 2023.
Oh, yeah.
I am going to freaking bet the Super Bowl right out of the park if it's ready by then. Holy crap. I'm going to just
for some
sell
reason,
my pants.
You can do parlays on Sleeper, though.
Yeah, I know you can do parlays on Sleeper.
I can't do that in New Hampshire.
What?
Yeah, so anytime your brother and some of our league mates will ask me to do one, I say I can't because it's illegal in New Hampshire. I don't know why. I can do every other sports gambling.
I'm sorry.
I can't do it on Sleeper.
You can't? What, can you parlay on like DraftKings?
Yes, I can do it on everything else. I just can't do it on Sleeper.
Wow, weird. Which is shocking because we shouldn't be able to sports gamble in Massachusetts, but it's somehow.
I know. I don't know why you guys can do it on Sleeper. It's a loophole.
Yeah, it's kind of BS. What are we doing here? Like, sports gambling should be legalized in Massachusetts and every other.
It will be.
It should be a federal law. I don't care which side of the aisle can figure it out. Republicans, Democrats, somebody make it legal in the entire United States. Then he's a federal law.
I'm down.
Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, it's gonna be a pretty boring matchup. I think what makes it more boring for a majority of people is that, like, if you're a Commanders fan and you're like, yeah, Commanders. If you're a Bears fan, you're like, I'm ready to be hurt again.
Yep. But hey, listen,
But so the fans are excited. The fans are exciting. For the rest of us, it's fantasy football output.
Right.
And I don't know. Like we'll go through these games, but I'm not starting anyone.
Probably not. If the Commanders win, it's whatever. If the Bears win, they're 3-3. All right, that's all I'm saying. They win, they're 3-3. They're 2-3 right now. I know, crazy.
I hope Justin Fields throws 3 touchdowns and 300 yards.
That's what I'm saying. We can, there's faith.
Woo!
All right, there's hope.
Okay, I like it. But hey, listen, that is what it is. But we're gonna talk about that. The Commanders happen to be at the Bears. Like Rick said, 38.5 point over/under. So this game, regardless of whether you're betting the over or betting the under, is probably not going to be a 50-plus point game between the both of them. I would take very large. Like if this game ends up being like 35-30, I would be stunned. I would be like, this is the greatest game I've ever seen in my life.
I agree, and I'm still betting the over.
I have a question before we jump into the Commanders and at the Bears. He's like, I'm still betting the over. All right, so I can't remember if it's next Thursday or next Monday. I don't know. I can't remember. There's a big game. Maybe it's Sunday Night Football. Big game. Chiefs play the Bills rematch.
Oh,
there is it was like 2 weeks ago. I saw a commercial for this game. And I was like, oh, my God, like they're really hyping this thing up. Rightfully so. They're probably going to be the AFC Championship game, I would assume.
That is this week, and it's a 4:00 game.
What the frick?
I don't know why it's not on
Put this
primetime.
game over there.
You know who they have on primetime instead?
Who?
Well, Eagles, Cowboys, Sunday night, that's fine. And then Broncos and Chargers Monday night. We get another Broncos game.
Flex
Over
it
Chiefs
out
and
and
Bills.
put the Chiefs and Bills in there. What are we doing? Anyway, so they're hyping it up. They got a commercial out, and the commercial basically was recapping what happened in the playoffs last year. And the commercial said it was the greatest playoff game ever. Now, I wanted to ask you, was that the greatest playoff game ever?
Yeah, I can think of one example.
I can think of a few. Not
Fair
that they
enough.
just involved the Patriots.
I could think of one example that Falcons fans would love. That involves numbers like 2, 8, and 3. But yeah, that Super Bowl was probably, I would say, the greatest for me. I don't know. I mean, it was a ridiculous game, but what I will say, it was a divisional game, right? It wasn't even like if that was the AFC Championship, I think it would. You could make the argument it was the greatest, but because it was divisional, I don't know. It didn't hit the same. But it was a ridiculous game.
Even like divisional round, you flip over to the NFC. I remember a football game many moons ago where that same player on the Bills, Stefan Diggs, caught a freaking touchdown pass that was 60 yards and got over a defender to end the football game. Like, holy crap. That was a better I don't know. I think it's one of the best playoff games. Not if you take Super Bowls out of it, I think it's one of the best playoff games ever. But I don't think it's the best. So that commercial really got
it's definitely
a little interesting.
I mean, yeah. It's in my top 5 though.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the problem is this going to happen every year? Like,
it might.
Every time they change the overtime rules, we're just going to keep going back and forth trading touchdowns until it's going to be the Chiefs and the Bills trading touchdowns in the playoffs, and the NFL going, we should have just made it sudden death after the first 2.
Hopefully somebody can stop somebody this year.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk about this probably disaster of a Thursday night game?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. We'll start with the Commanders because why not?
Okay.
This is an interesting name. It was so funny. I tweeted a complete side note about baseball. Baseball playoffs started. A couple of really interesting things happening there. Really don't care. But the Indians, or not the Indians, what are they called? The Guardians now? The Guardians.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Won 2 games, and I tweeted out, I said, can I be a bandwagon Cleveland Indians fan? And then I was like, they're not the Indians anymore. I just completely took all of my credibility and flushed it right down the drain with that one tweet.
they probably thought you were like joking in a negative way too by saying that. So like they just shunned you.
I know.
Like the Cleveland fans
Anyway, so
are like mocking their team name, but you just didn't know.
The only reason why I bring that up is because the Commanders are a different team, and honestly, they've had so many team names that at this point, I don't even remember them as the Redskins anymore.
Screw Thursday Night Football. What's the better team name? Commanders or the Guardians?
I don't know. Guardians gives me like Guardians of the Galaxy vibe.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's good or bad.
Think of, and I don't know if it's good or bad either. I really don't know. I don't mind the Commanders, but I was really hoping for like the Red Hogs or the Presidents. So
I don't know. Like Guardians could be worse, but it could also be better. Like it has more potential of a name.
Yeah.
Commanders are just kind of like I don't know. It's just so like,
Oh well, we got to live with it.
I know we do.
Yeah, this is one of like the original founding like organizations of the NFL, and it feels like an expansion franchise now.
It does. It really does feel like an expansion team.
Love their uniforms though; they look cool.
Yeah,
the ugly mustard yellow.
They're right.
Anyway, all right. Let's talk about the quarterback. Carson Wentz comes into this game. He's had some good games. He's had some bad games. On the season, and I've said he's a streamable asset against my brain. See, I'm already forgetting who they're playing. This is how bad
Bears,
the Bears thing against the Bears. This should be a little bit of an easier matchup for him. So if there's a week that I would be willing to start him, this would be one of them. You look at his performances on the season. Jacksonville, Detroit, 2 easier matchups, 33-31. Tennessee, easier matchup on the season, 24 fantasy points. Against Philly and Dallas, he had 8 and 10, so those are tougher ones. So he does have an easier matchup against Chicago, but I hate streaming the Thursday night quarterbacks. I really do. So I'm gonna stay away from Carson Wentz. I'm gonna say no, I don't like him. But if you really like, there's no one on your waiver wire and you desperately need a stream quarterback, I don't think Carson Wentz is a horrible way to go.
Yeah, he's gonna be real gross.
By the way, he's the QB8 on the season.
I know, and the problem with Carson Wentz is he either gets you like 8 fantasy points. He's like Mike Williams or Gabe Davis, like one of these like inconsistent receivers, but he's a quarterback, which makes it so much worse. Because if he could really get like 8 points or like 25, and you have no idea. Chicago seems like a good matchup. It's a Thursday night game. It's in Chicago. Like I don't know, man. I think if there's other options, I would go with those options, but it would depend on like what your team looks like. I think would you rank him as like a top 15 quarterback this week?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So that's like if you're streaming guys, he should definitely be considered.
Maybe like even just outside the top 15, but
but that's still like in the streaming range. So it depends what your waiver wire looks like. Depends what your team looks like. But I'm not super high on Wentz this week.
Okay, let's play the merry-go-round of fun. We have Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Brian Robinson. Rick, are you starting Gibson? McKissick. Brian Robinson. All right, so because we're not starting anyone in the running backfield, what are you looking for in this game from the backs for Washington?
Oh my gosh, dude. I want to see a little bit more of one guy kind of taking the role. Is see if that's possible.
Some clarity.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to see that because even if one guy does well, I think Ron Rivera is going to just like let's say Gibson has a 20-yard run. I think they'll just go right back to Brian Robinson next drive and give him work. But it would also be the same vice versa. Mm-hmm. If Brian Robinson does good, I don't think they're just going to throw Gibson to the side. Like I think they'll still use him. And then McKissick will always be there for his presence in the locker room and his pass catching ability. So he's going to get 4 or 5 targets and get 1 carry, and Gibson's going to get 4 or 5 targets and 5 carries, and then Brian Robinson's going to have 0 targets, but he'll get 10 carries.
Gibson will probably play the role, similar to early season Travis Etienne.
Yes.
7, 8 carries, 4 targets, 3 catches, 10, 11, 12 touches. So it might be like a flex-worthy play at, the bottom basement of your lineup.
So I was going to ask,
not anything that is like super worthy. Whereas McKissick and Brian Robinson at this point have zero fantasy value to me at this point. Like, I like Robinson as like an upside, like, okay, if this guy takes over the backfield, like Rick said, get some clarity on Thursday night, he gets, 15, 16 carries and maybe 1 or 2 catches, and it's his backfield and he has a good game, then yeah, obviously you want that, roster him before it happens. But as far as like start worthy performances, Brian Robinson should be nowhere near your lineup for this game or in the near future until he shows you that he can perform.
I was going to ask, so if you had to start one, you're starting Gibson?
Yes.
I would too. I would say with Brian Robinson, though, because feels like he's going to be getting majority of the work on the ground, it also means he's going to get the goal line carries. So, I could see a week where he gets 10 carries and 40 yards, which isn't anything good, but then he gets a touchdown, and he gets double-digit fantasy points because of that. But yeah, I'm not starting Brian Robinson until he takes control of that backfield, if he ever does. So for now, it's Gibson, but I don't want to start Gibson either.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm looking for clarity in this backfield to see what's happening as we move forward, but. Talking about some of the wide receivers, we have some interesting guys. I haven't heard any news on Jahan Dotson.
His injury was 1 to 2 weeks, and I'm pretty sure because it's a Thursday night game. The last I heard that he was not going to play this week.
Okay, so let's just operate under the assumption that Jahan Dotson's not going to be there.
Okay.
Dwami Brown this week had a really big performance. He wasn't even on our waiver wire show. I don't have any interest in Dwami Brown. We know Jahan Dotson's coming back. I don't
maybe a secret dynasty stash though.
Yes, dynasty stash.
Taxi spot.
So that leaves 2 guys: T-Mac, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Samuel has been good to start the season in some aspects. I haven't heard his name lately. So has there been a decline or what's going on with Curtis?
Yeah, there's been a decline, but he's still been pretty decent, and he's still getting a lot of targets. First 2 weeks he was amazing because he had the touchdowns, but now he's not getting touchdowns. He hasn't had a touchdown since week 2, but he still had 8 targets this week, 6 catches, 12 fantasy points. He's still a good flex. I think Fantasy Pros had him ranked as wide receiver 20 something, late 20s. So he's still a good flex, but he's not. He's not a wide receiver 1, which we knew that, but he's still a decent. He's getting more targets than I think Mclaurin, so that's kind of concerning.
Yeah, I mean, he was brought in to play a specific role for this team, and he obviously got hurt last year and couldn't fulfill that obligation, and now this year he comes in and they just threw him right back in that role. So, are you interested in flexing him this week against Chicago?
Curtis Samuel?
Yeah,
I don't mind it, especially with Dotson out. I think the Dwami Brown 2 touchdowns is a fluke. So if Carson Wentz throws a touchdown, it's probably going to go to McLaurin or Samuel. So I would start him. I think he's going to have a decent week. I'm not expecting 20 points again, but a good flex.
Yeah. And then you have Terry McLaurin, who is obviously the wide receiver 1 for the team. I don't think he is like an automatic start on a week-to-week basis, Terry McLaurin, even though some people might disagree with that. I think that he probably needs to be considered based on matchup. I hate Thursday night football. I don't think this Chicago matchup is that great for Curtis Samuel or Terry McLaurin, so I'm not excited about it. But if you need to start, you can start Terry McLaurin. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I view it the same way. I think he's a good flex. He has been very disappointing, though. In first 5 weeks of the season, Curtis Samuel has led the team in targets every single week, which you could look at that as positive for Curtis Samuel. You could also look at it for negative for Terry McLaurin. He has not led the team in targets yet this season, which is super disappointing to me for someone who's been a McLaurin guy the last couple of years and always liked the player. But I feel like I'm kind of out on him now. But I do think this week against Chicago is actually good because, again, the Jahan Dotson thing and Dwami Brown will not have 2 touchdowns again. So like I said, if Carson Wentz does have a touchdown, chances are it's going to be McLaurin or Samuel. So I would definitely still start him this week at my flex, but temper your expectations.
Yep. And then is there any tight ends you want to talk about? Logan Thomas is probably
no. I think Logan Thomas
one,
is injured,
he's not suiting up. I don't think he's going to suit up this week. Might be questionable before the game, but check injury reports and stuff like that as you're going into the week. I don't like Logan Thomas though this week.
I don't either.
All right, let's move to the other side of the matchup, which is the Chicago Bears, and that would be A1 Justin Fields at quarterback.
Hey.
Love Justin Fields. Bears are such a classic franchise, too. Yeah. Love them.
I know.
Love the Bears.
Wouldn't it be great if he was good? First of all, it's finally a good quarterback, not in the AFC, right? And then it's also like the Bears. Like it's a historic franchise.
It'd be great if they were good.
In the NFC. It's just good for us, as Patriots fans too, that we get a quarterback.
I really wanted him to go into Lambeau and just rip Aaron Rodgers' drawers off, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
And ever since then, I've been kind of like, all right. But Justin Fields had a good week last week. Like I said on the waiver show, I want to pick him up this week. I like him, but I don't like this matchup for him. So not really the matchup against the Commanders. I mean, they do have some good things defensively that they go to, but it's not really the Commanders that I'm worried about. It's more or less Justin Fields that I'm worrying about because there have been and Washington's been a good matchup this year. Forgive me. So that makes it a little more difficult to say what I'm about to say.
It's
but
still that
Fields
has not had more than
the last
17 fantasy points.
The last 2 weeks he's had 22 and 21 pass attempts. You have to start against these easier matchups like Washington, like Miami, Detroit, Atlanta, who've been giving up a lot of fantasy points. They have to start throwing it more. They have to start figuring out how to throw the ball more, get Justin Fields more comfortable, and see if he can kind of have some good games. But like I said, I'm willing to roster him. I don't want to start him until I see it. It's similar to the other side where we figure out what's going on with, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson and all those guys. But yeah, so I'm not starting Justin Fields, but I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him, but definitely not starting him.
All right, running backs, we got Monty, who has been out, Khalil Herbert, who has replaced him. Did Monty return, or is he still out?
He did. He returned and had
18
a good week fantasy-wise.
1.67 fantasy points. I mean, yards per carry, not fantasy points. 1.67 yards per carry. Not good.
Really gross.
Yeah. So,
but he had 4 targets, 4 catches for 62 yards.
So I think Montgomery is startable this week. I think he's a good RB2 or high end flex. I think he's fine against Washington. So I would play him. As far as Herbert is concerned, or anyone else in that running game, without Dave Montgomery not being out, none of them are worthy of a player start or consideration of even being on the roster. I think Herbert might even be a high end handcuff for Montgomery, but that's about it.
Yeah, I would agree. Montgomery, I'm not like thrilled about him. He is what he is, but decent matchup, good flex, and could have a good week. And then Herbert, yeah, he's irrelevant. It feels like with Montgomery there.
Yeah. Some of the wide receivers, they have a lot of wide receivers on their team that are trash.
Yep.
We got 2 practice squatters, 3 guys on IR, and 6 receivers on the depth chart. Velus Jones, Emir Smith Marset,
who?
Byron Pringle,
gross.
Dante Pettis, and then Equanimus St. Brown.
Gross.
All of these guys are nobodies. If you play fantasy football and you don't keep up with like the NFL. And you don't follow teams' rosters, and you saw these guys' names, you would still not know who they are, even if you played fantasy.
Honestly, I mean, How many of those guys even make NFL rosters on other teams?
I don't even know. I can't think.
Wasn't
of a
Dante
worse,
Pettis like off the streets?
I can't think of a worse like wide receiving core in the NFL.
It is so horrible.
And there's some pretty bad ones out there.
Yeah,
the Packers have one of them, and
the Packers make it look like they have an all-pro wide receiver group compared to the Bears.
Fields has a far better wide receiver weapon than Rodgers does in Darnell Mooney.
I think so too.
But
yeah.
outside of that,
the next like 4 guys I would choose are on the Packers.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous. But anyway, so Mooney is the only guy for the Chicago Bears, and we were Mooney guys. I was a big Mooney guy. We were big Mooney people because we thought they were going to pass the football more. And I think it's not Mooney sucking. It's not the Bears' offense being bad. It's the fact that the Bears just haven't thrown the ball. I mean, they are straight babying like Justin Fields right now. They are making sure that Justin Fields doesn't throw the ball. But you've seen since week 1 and 2, Mooney have like 3 and 2 in weeks 1 and 2 to now where he's getting 6 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets. Now, like I guarantee you, if you went into his numbers and you looked at his overall team like target share, it's right now it's 25%,
close to 30%.
It's close. It's 25% right now, and that's number 25 in the NFL. So he's getting like you want it to be between 25 and 30% the target share rate. And that's where his is. The problem is they don't throw it over 30 times a game. They haven't thrown it over 22 times.
Now, here's the problem with this though, is they have the last 2 weeks called a decent amount of passing plays. Fields will run or get sacked a lot. He gets sacked, I think, and it's not his fault. The offensive line is horrible, but like he gets sacked a lot, and then sometimes he'll scramble and make something happen. I think the touchdown run that he had was a pass play called, but he scrambled and turned it into a huge touchdown. So they only ran the ball 16 times on design runs for the running backs this week. So it's not like they've been as in the beginning of the year they were definitely babying him though.
Yeah.
But like last week, it didn't feel like they were as much. It's just this is kind of how it is.
They still need to call more pass plays, and I think that's the thing. Is like even if even if he's running out of some of those, or they're it's still not enough. It's like right now on the season so far, their pass to run ratio has been 39% pass to 61% run. It's been absurdly it's just not good. To me, I look at this as a situation where they need to get him up to at least 30 pass attempts to 35 pass attempts a game. If that happens, Darnell Mooney will be in the 9-10 target share range. We weren't wrong about Mooney in terms of them utilizing him the way that they are.
And he is a good player.
It's the fact that they're just not throwing
the fantasy
enough.
Points are just.
So if they threw it more, I think Mooney would be there, but this is just it's not good for anybody in this Mooney camp. Now, as far as this game goes, like, what are you doing with Darnell Mooney?
I'm not starting. I am not starting Darnell Mooney.
Him either. Yeah, I'm not starting.
It's not. I'm not even considering anyone else.
I'm out. So I would sit him this week. And root for him to have success because I like Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, I will continue to root for him and the next guy we're going to talk about, but I don't think they're going to do anything.
Final guy, Cole Kmet. He has also been getting an interesting. Usually, we want to see like around 18%, like target share percentage for tight ends. He's been getting around 12%, 12 to 13%. He's participating
much lower than.
Yeah,
I thought he would get.
He is participating on 85% of snaps running routes. So like he's out there, he's doing things. He's just not should he join the all cardio team with Allen Robinson?
Yeah, four targets this week, 4 catches, 4 targets.
Yeah. So I do like Cole Kmet, but he's probably not even on like rosters at this point.
He's not on teams, no.
Yeah, so I would just keep an eye on him, but like the Bears right now, outside of Montgomery, they have 0 like startable fantasy assets.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Cole Kmet as well because I have him in a lot of best ball leagues, unfortunately.
Yeah. But there's this Thursday night football game that's just abysmal.
I hope all the hate is approved wrong and Fields throws 3 touchdowns.
Oh my God, I would sweat. If Fields just rips apart the field and rips the Commanders to pieces, I would sweat. All right, there you go. We got starts and sits and trade targets later in the week. See you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.